Yes, team. Welcome to another episode of the Total Mental Performance Podcast. Today we have Joe Brightman, Joe Brighty. He has a number of different aliases. I first saw him speak at the Coach Consultant. That was in Manchester, the Coach Convention. That was it. I saw him speak there, and I thought, this is an interesting dude. Then I started following him, and then over time we were chatting, going back and forth, and then he just moved to Dubai, and I said, "Dude, do you want to shoot a pod?" And he was like, "I'm in." And here we are. Joe, welcome to the Total Mental Performance Podcast.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me on. As I say, I always appreciate these invites. I think I'm still getting used to it, but it's cool to be on.
Yeah. So why don't you just run us through the top 3 bullet points? What is it that you do?
Number one, let's go number one, IFBB Pro Classic Physique Bodybuilder. I think that's my true passion. I think if we actually had this conversation, you asked me if money didn't exist, what would you do? And I'd say I'd do bodybuilding. So that's not what I am, number one. Number two, full-time online coach with Team Brightman, founder, and now just solo employee. And back to myself. Number three, what am I number three? Oh,
We got the top 2.
got
What's
the
up
top
there?
2. Number 3, I'm not a content creator. I don't have myself down as that, but journey sharer, let's say. I'll just share my story and hope that people learn from it. Maybe educator further down the line, but for now, a journey sharer.
All right. Well, let's run through that journey. Where was you born?
I was born in Grays, Essex,
Yeah.
back in the UK. I was not there for long, like a couple of years. Moved around a lot as a kid. My mum was single mum, midwife. The most incredible woman in my life. Still don't know quite how she did it. Had me very young, but managed to bring up, I think, an all right person. So we moved around a lot and then finally settled in Lincolnshire. Small market town, Spalding. That's where I spent my whole childhood. Up to, 16, 17, 18. Went off to uni, Coventry. Did English and journalism. Probably not many people know that. But I think that's coming through a bit more and more. Like, you've obviously got this in front of me, which we're gonna read out. I do enjoy writing. I sort of forgot I enjoyed writing, but I think it's something that comes easy to me. I enjoy writing, and I think people often comment, "Oh, you're quite good at writing, aren't you?" It's like, yeah, I like it. So that's what I did at uni, and then I stumbled into London, corporate job. I just always knew I wanted to be in London when I was a kid. My stepdad's got his own business. He always would travel down to London at 5 a.m. on the train, wearing a suit. I was like, I want to do that. I want to wear a suit and work in London. Got the job in London, realised this ain't all it's cracked up to be. I think I worked at John Lewis. So many of our English listeners will definitely know that brand, department store. Worked there, incredible culture, lovely company to work for, but just didn't set me alight.
What was you doing?
So I actually started in store in Cambridge, and that really quite killed me because, to be honest, a lot of my friends went on from uni to get really good jobs in banks, and I was like, oh man, I'm working on the shop floor. This is not really what I want to be doing. It's sort of, close to minimum wage. I'm a very ambitious guy, and I'm probably quite harsh on myself. So thinking, this isn't it. But I kind of worked by the way, throughout this whole history in the background, bodybuilding is ongoing. Just because I enjoy it, as I said. And so I was just kind of working away on the shop floor. I did 8 months there, and I was like, right, let me just try and get into head office. Managed to get a job there as a merchandising assistant. So that is a job all about numbers, way out of my comfort zone. I'm terrible with numbers. I don't like them. I didn't like maths at school, and I didn't do anything. As soon as I could stop doing numbers, I stopped doing numbers. So I got this job at John Lewis, merchandising assistant. As I say, felt totally out of my depth. It's not a high level job. It's an entry level office job. But I really struggled with it, like Excel, formulas, all this stuff. I was like, oh my God, like day one, I said to my person next to me, where's that column gone? And she's like, oh, it's hidden. How do you unhide it? So imagine me learning a VLOOKUP was very difficult. Anyway, I really do apply myself to everything I do. So I apply myself to this, and I got promoted once to like online merchandisers. That was where the online space was rather than the stock.
Even more numbers and data.
More numbers, but that felt a bit more kind of stakeholder managery. So that was a lot like working with people, e-commerce, a bit more marketing, I'd say, than number crunching per se. Like we had to look at data and understand, week on week uplifts and conversion and click through rate and all that stuff. But it wasn't quite what I was dealing with before. And I guess the previous role sort of set me up for that anyway. And then I got promoted to senior online merchandiser. And that was cool. Like I was, at that point, I think I'd finally gotten to a point where I was a bit more comfortable. Rent wasn't 50-60% of my wage. I was like, okay, this is all right. And I enjoyed that. And I kind of started to find out things about myself that I enjoyed about work, and that was a lot about influencing people. I really enjoyed being in rooms with people that were higher than me, you know, had more status, paid more responsibility. I loved that, and what I loved even more was influencing those people. I was like, this is cool. When the head of is listening to me and they want to take my feedback on, that's a nice feeling. But lo and behold, you know, I stuck that out for a bit. It's retail's not an easy place to be over the last 5 years. In fact, a lot of them are now gone. You know, Debenhams is gone. Don't think House of Fraser's around anymore. John Lewis is holding on somehow. Hopefully it carries on too. But this is not a retail podcast. No, I enjoyed my work there, but it was difficult. I was sort of the level I wanted to get to. This is obviously purely financial at this point. You know, I wanted to earn more and do better and be successful financially. It's going to take me a long time, man. You know, I think probably 4, 5, 6 promotions to be on the board, to then be in the sort of numbers I'm wanting to earn, 6 figures, whatever. And I remember one day, this is always sticking in my memory, we had like a team meeting, and the head of was talking to us about whatever, and he was really passionate about it. I could tell that he cared. I was like, I just don't care, man. Like, fuck, I don't care about this stuff. Not enough for me to come and do this 30, 37, 38, 39 hours a week. And as I say, all alongside that, I've got the bodybuilding going on in the background, and I'm getting a bit better about that and a bit better and a bit better. I'm competing in the background. And then, lockdown hit, and it was that when I was like, okay, I wasn't put on furlough because it was online, my job, e-commerce, like I say, but I had a lot more time. So I kind of spent that time earning more clients, building my business. And I think when lockdown hit, a lot of people really, I mean, myself included, had a bit of a panic attack. I was just actually getting somewhere. Had sort of 20, 30 clients. I turned pro in that time as well, still at John Lewis. So you can imagine the profile's kind of growing. And I was like, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it all. You know, all this background stuff I'm building, I'm going to lose it because of lockdown. And actually the opposite happened. You know, I really tried to show up in that time. I tried to show people how to train or how best to train, and I tried to be a bit positive during a time when a lot of people were thinking the whole world's coming down. And I think that did me a great service. And through lockdown, you know, not even by the end of lockdown, but by the end of the first major lockdown, I had enough clients to quit my job. I quit my job, and then the rest is history.
Amazing. What a story. What a story. There's so many points in that I'm interested in. And there's also a lot I resonate in. I used to work for Rakuten. I don't know if you know those guys or not, but I used to sell fashion technology and data analytics and CRM platforms into retail.
There you go.
So I understand that well very much. It's always on. You're always looking at data. You're always looking at numbers. There's always targets to hit, and you're not hitting targets. It's like, what's going on? So, but there's one point in your story which really lit me up, because it's where I really resonated with it, which is you looked at this and you went, I just don't care. I had this moment where our CEO and our commercial chief revenue officers having a go at us. Like, we need to get this. We need to get these guys on. And the end result was this brand sells more handbags. And I was like, I couldn't give a flying fuck how many handbags are sold. And then there's always this moment, I call it a now what moment, where you get the thing you thought you wanted, and then you're like, oh, is this it? Oh, shit. And then you go back on the hedonic treadmill. Or maybe it's this next thing, and it's this next thing, and it's next thing. It sounds like that's where you went, all right, I'm actually going to do what I enjoy, which is coaching and training, and taking that up a notch.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't really necessarily like a conscious choice at that moment, but it just always sticks in my memory, because I think maybe like there was like a latent, you know, like there was a bit of a lag on the decision. I guess I've always kind of said, like, I've from a kid, I'd say I was an underachiever as a kid. Like, I was the kid at school who was like, oh, Joe could do better if he concentrated. And mum and dad probably never that happy really with how I was getting on, in trouble. Nothing really serious, but just a troublemaker, you know. But throughout all that, and also I played a lot of sports at school. I was never good at any of them. I was like, I just want to be good at something, man. Like, what am I going to be good at? And then, kind of in the background, like I said, I kind of realised I should just admit that I'm good at bodybuilding. Like, I'm in the top percent, but I still struggle with that, because obviously we're always comparing upwards. But I finally found something that I won. So I came second in my first ever show out of like 72 people, and I was like, oh shit, that's pretty good. That was back at uni, so 21. And then we fast forward to that point, and I'd continue that journey, and I'd won a few more shows, and I was like, okay, growing a bit of a following, still sharing my journey. And that moment just does stick in my mind, but it was only really in lockdown, I guess, that I really started to do something about it and think this could be my full-time job. So that's kind of how it materialized in the end.
Amazing. And I'm going to pull up this letter that you shared on your Instagram. It really hooked me, and I'm guessing you got a really good response from it.
I think it's pretty decent. The people that could be
Yeah.
bothered to read through it, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually a really beautiful piece. I'm going to read it out, and it might catch you off guard as I read it out. You're like, fuck, I wrote that. But it was beautiful. So can you just, in fact, can you just provide some context? What was the Undefeated Pro Camp?
So this is obviously very, very fresh. I started my travels this year after my Team Brightman coaching team day. A week later, 13th of January, I was flying over to Bali to join this pro camp, which perfect time to explain what it is because it's never been done before. A guy that inspires me easily in my top 3 on social media, Jackson. Don't know if you know him, Jackson Pios, incredible guy, just bulletproof mindset, something for me that I'm still working on. He's an amateur bodybuilder, if you like. He's only competed once actually a long time ago, but recently he's been really applying himself to it. He has a PhD, so it's kind of all the stuff that I'm interested in. I like that scientific side of bodybuilding, but obviously, of course, I like to, the blood and guts of it as well. And I think for him, probably a selfish endeavor, but he invited, I think 19 or 20 pro athletes, IFBB pros, and then 4 kind of amateurs, I guess friends of his really, but high level amateurs, people that are sort of pushing the pro ranks or trying to turn pro. Invited 25 people in total to this pro camp in Bali, which, as I say, not something that's been done before, but his motivation was to try and bring the team element back to bodybuilding. He's a big fan of the old school, sport, basketball, and actually, I think that's mostly it. Basketball was the main one, but just team sport in general. I think he played it as a kid, and he was like, "Why is this not in bodybuilding? Why are we all just solo on our own?" And I was like, "Yeah, fair." Because we just crack on. You have a bit of communication, a bit of contact here and there, but by and large, it's a very solo, isolating endeavor. So he invited all these people together to kind of network, train together, eat together, recover together, and just share the process, I guess, for a week. And genuinely, probably since. So if I look back on the highlights of my life, turning pro was one of them. That was a day I achieved one of my dreams. I don't think I'll top that, to be honest. Not very often. And then last week was incredible from a professional, if you will, perspective. Just amazing to be around, to finally understand that, or to feel part of a tribe. Yeah, and I think not in competition. All sharing our struggles. There was a really quite profound moment on, I think it was day 3, where Hattie Boydell, who's quite a big Australian influencer and I think WBFF pro back in the day, she did a talk, and she basically wanted us all to kind of practice some gratitude, publicly in front of everyone, and everyone in the room. And it started with, bear in mind this is a mixture of men, women, boys, girls, whatever you want to call us, and all pros or high level amateurs. It starts quite shallow. Someone says, "I'm grateful for my health," and it's one of them ones where you're like, "Yeah, okay, of course." But anyway, as we went around the room, it got gradually deeper and deeper and deeper. And by the second row, there's girls talking that are now crying about their experience of bodybuilding and why they love it so much and what it means to them. And then, but I'm choking up as well by the time it gets to me. So that was really profound. And I think immediately, everyone just knew each other on a deeper level. It was no longer surface level. Everyone knew something really deep about, and there was some really, really personal stuff shared about life in general, and why bodybuilding is so important to people. And I think I carry this, I think I did mention it in the letter. I carry this uncomfort or shame. I think it must be shame or guilt or just something around bodybuilding. I think people have a negative connotation with it, or just a stupid meathead sort of thing. I often feel like that, and when people ask me in public spaces or news circles, "What's your job?" I do feel a bit of I sort of go inwards. I want to I don't want to hide it. I go out in public and I wear baggy clothes, and I'm never wearing tight t-shirts and stuff like that. So there's obviously some stuff I need to unpack. But this program was it was just a week where we all trained together every day. It made bodybuilding a team sport. We shared a lot, and it was really, really quite cool. Just a really cool week. And honestly, I'm thinking, when are we doing this again? It's going to be amazing. So that's what it was.
That's beautiful. So on that topic, what does bodybuilding mean to you, and what does it represent?
I think bodybuilding gave me, as I said to you a minute ago, in terms of before, I just wanted to be good at something. I really desperately, all my childhood, wanted to be good at something. I never really found anything I was that good at. And then I found bodybuilding, and I felt like I was good at it. So suddenly I feel like a sense of pride or achievement or something. That's why I think I tag onto it. I'm really, really fortunate to have a very supportive family. None of them question bodybuilding. They actually all like it themselves. Like my stepdad's got like an Arnold encyclopedia. Like my dad trained when he was young. Like they've all done it. Even my mum's in incredible shape. So I'm lucky to have a really kind of supportive circle on that. I know a lot of people aren't. But it was like my first outlet of people being proud of me and me being able to be proud of myself. I think that's what it's given me. And outside of that, like purpose, it gives me a structure. And I kind of went away from bodybuilding in 2020. End of 22, I was the last time I competed, and I sort of had like a whole kind of 8 months away from competing or pushing body weight or pulling back or whatever, because I kind of got a bit sick of it. I was like, oh god, I spent a decade bulking or cutting. Like this is a bit much. I craved a bit of normality. When I got normality, I just craved bodybuilding again. I was like, this is me. Like it feels like the the identity that I've kind of built around myself. It's not comfortable, but it's just the mission that I'm on. It's where I feel most like I'm gonna get somewhere. I think that's how I feel. I feel like bodybuilding is my one shot, or at least in this lifetime. Not like, when I say lifetime, I mean chapters of life. Like I feel at the moment, this is my shot to really make something of myself, whether that is through bodybuilding or influencing people through bodybuilding or coaching or whatever. So, it's given me a purpose. It's given me something to be good at, which I'm eternally grateful for.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, that resonates with me. As a kid, my dad was my football manager. We were bottom of the bottom league, and he benched me every game. Now, as an adult, we can laugh and go, "You must have been really shit." But actually, as a kid, I didn't feel good enough.
No.
And for me, the moment, sounds like you had the same thing in bodybuilding. My moment of, I'm actually pretty good at this, was boxing, because you can't get substituted in boxing, you can't get substituted in bodybuilding. Like you're in, and it was that moment where I went, "Oh my god, I can actually make something of myself." And then I got attached to that, and that was my thing, and that was where I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. And there was a healthy level of that, and then it became unhealthy. And for me, it ended up in an eating disorder, anxiety, depression, trying to take my own life, and not leave my parents' house for 2 weeks. Ended in a really bad spot. Where in the ashes of that is where I actually discovered my purpose. Not straight away. There was a lag. It was years later, but it was helping ambitious minds avoid that fate and that car crash of where I went. Then also, I'm a performance geek. I'm fascinated by how we can get better. What's the extra 1%, 5%, and how that works. But in there, when I read this, a lot of it resonated with me, and I'm sure it resonated with a lot of people. And I'm going to read it out. I think this is on the second or third slide. Like anyone, I have my own struggles, issues, problems. But anyone that knows me well enough will tell you the majority of those problems are created in my own head. I believe it to be the thing that holds me back the most. I carry huge self-doubt, I lack confidence, and I get in my own way a lot. I struggle to give myself any credit for what I've achieved, and I rarely take a minute to look around and see how my life compares to a few years ago back in John Lewis. I'm not sure if I've said this publicly, but I'm highly self-conscious despite how it may look on social media. Whenever I'm preparing for a situation outside of a gym environment, I make sure I do everything to draw as little attention to my physique and speaking about what I do for a living to new people, or people who just won't get it. And I think deep down, I feel some shame for the life I've built for myself. I'm yet to find the answers why. Due to a lot of this, I make my own head a lot of an unpleasant place to be a lot of the time. Prior to that camp, I can't remember a day that didn't go by where I didn't feel a pang of stress in my stomach. I can't remember being truly kind. However, in this last week, I felt none of that. I truly felt like a key player in the team. I felt seen, heard, and understood. I didn't feel self-conscious. Whether that was the thirst thing in the morning or sweat running down my face from just having a challenging conversation. For that, I want to say thank you for every person that was a part of the camp.
Yeah.
That's really well written.
I do my best.
Your journalism background then come through that. There was so much in that I think so many people don't realise that everyone feels like that. For me, when I was on the England boxing team, I was working with Hazel Gale, my therapist and performance coach, and she fucking changed my life. She was amazing. But I remember going on these camps, and I remember going, yeah, but like, I'm really insecure, and I feel like, this guy's been to the Europeans, or this guy's done this, and I'm just sort of here, and I'm just breaking on, and I'm always injured, and like, whatever. And she goes, Kieran, everyone's injured. Everyone's insecure. Everyone feels self-doubt. Like, it's a thing. Like, really is a thing. And then she put me in touch with some of her other fighters who I really looked up to. And I was like, no, there's no way that guy feels like that. There's no way he feels like that. And I just remember having a short Zoom call. I won't say who it is because he was very private about his stuff. And he goes, man, I'm riddled with self-doubt and imposter syndrome, and it fucking terrifies me and it kills me. But I've learned to mold the mind so I can use that in a way where it doesn't destroy me and I can get more done. And for me, that was the highlight moment of, oh, and that's why we do this podcast. Nearly broke the podcast. Um, everybody feels like that. And it's just the intensity that if we can dial that down and dial up some more positive emotions, the whole game can change. So when you wrote that, it was beautiful. It was really, really, really beautiful. And I'm really keen and curious to explore some of this if you feel like you're interested.
Go ahead, man. I put it out there, so let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're just going to describe some of those doubt, self-confidence, all of that stuff, that jungle in the head, if you're going to put that into 3 words when you're going through those emotions and those thoughts, how would you summarize all of those?
I'd say like pretty crippling, probably very, very, very unproductive or inefficient is how it makes me. And I guess like I know it's in there, the self-doubt and the lack of self-belief, but it's that if I could package that into a word, it's almost like the it's like debilitating. That's what it is. It's debilitating. I think it stops me doing things that I should do or have every right or was just as much right as everyone else to do. I think that's probably where debilitating, which sounds really, really like that sounds really strong, but I think that's what it is. And not my hands aren't tied behind my back, but it kind of feels like they are, or someone's just telling me, nah, don't do that, mate. Why would you do that? Why do you have the right to do that? Many more than 3 words, but
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're going to describe your childhood in a few words, how would you describe that?
My childhood, again, challenging because of me, not because of anyone else. I made it challenging for myself. Probably under-potentialized, challenging, under-potentialized, and I'd just say like overwhelmingly positive. Like I look back and like it's positive, but those 2 things, I think especially where my life is now and how it's gone, like that's how I feel right now as well. Under-potentialized, challenged, but also everything around me if I actually take a second, and that's probably how I feel. I imagine in 20 years when I look back and I think, wow, my 25 to 35, that was pretty damn good, man. So yeah.
Can you see the connection between that, let's say that 5 to 7-year-old potentially, to where you are now? Can you see that that's where there was an imprint left into how you view the world and how you process that?
It's probably even sort of, I don't even know about 5, but maybe sort of 7 to 12. I think probably the years when I probably just felt like a little shit. Caused a lot of issues. Definitely sort of 7 to like 15. That's probably when it stopped. That's quite a large span, but maybe my brain developed at a bit of a slower rate. I know boys develop a bit slower, but yeah, I'm sure there are some earlier memories and stuff that's gone on. Like my parents aren't together. There's probably some stuff that's gone on there. But on the whole, like when I really think about childhood, it was like school, being told off, not being good enough, never being like making people proud. That's probably how I'd feel.
Yeah. You said you felt like a little shit. What emotions would you attach with that?
Like disappointment, people being disappointed in me. Never like being in the good books, them ones like, no one's ever like really, and often didn't feel like people were like happy to see me, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. That's probably the overwhelming ones.
Essentially, that your model of the world is built when you're a kid. That's when it is. And all of that fear, that doubt, that imposter syndrome, that all rears its ugly head as you start to go through your 20s and 30s. And that's where we start to go, okay. So for me, it was always the fear of not being good enough and fear of failure. So in boxing, it's very black and white. I'm doing air quotes, I can prove my enoughness by whether I beat the other guy or not. And even then, I didn't feel good enough when I won a lot of the time. And then in sales, in software sales, it's very black or white. You hit your target or you don't.
Yeah.
You're the winner or you're the loser. And losing always hurt a hell of a lot more than winning ever did. And it was always that imprint of not feeling enough. And for me, what I found is as I started to explore, okay, well, what is that about? And I started to let go of that. That's where I started to find peace. Doesn't mean I don't get anxious or overwhelmed or stressed, but the amount of emotional energy that I'm burning up in that started to really tone down. And this is often where I think people get people don't really understand what mental performance work is and what we do. Often people think it's either very woo-woo, so very spiritual, oh, we're just going to manifest all of this stuff, or it's too therapy, it's too soppy, or on the flip side, it's too performance-based, it's too future-pacing, it's too leadership and communication, and this is kind of where I've merged all of it. Because my view in the way in which we interpret the world is we can't build a better future if we're trying to build it on our past. So the level of thinking and feeling that got us here isn't the level of thinking and feeling that's going to get us to the next level. And it's saying goodbye to that inner child's fears and doubts and insecurities and helping that move forward. That really changes the game. But often people don't think. They come to me for the productivity stuff. But I want to sort of like get more shit done, and I want to do this, I want to do that. But sometimes actually we've got to look at the psychological foundation of, well, what's actually stopping the productive bit. It's the work that you avoid, which is where all the results live.
Yeah. I think we've obviously had a conversation before about what you guys do. And I think it's like, I think I understand it quite well based on the conversation that we had. And I think, it's kind of, from what I understand, it's almost more like breaking down the barriers to allow you to be more productive. It's not, I'm not going to give you productivity hacks, because if you're doing productivity hacks on the backdrop of like doubt, anxiety, I'm not good enough, like it's going to fall back, right? So yeah, I think that's what I understand from it. But I'm sure a lot of people are like, what the hell is this? What does this guy do?
And it's understanding that we can only, a good metaphor would be a coffee cup, right? So if you have, let's say you wake up every day and you got 60% of the coffee cup, that remaining 40% is self-doubt and imposter syndrome and fear and whatever. So when you get to the end of the day and you're really tired and you're like, I can't really do much else. Like, why am I so tired? It's because you started your day with a load more emotional energy and bandwidth being spent on those limiting beliefs, on those fears, on those doubts. And as you start to do more work, and I see this through clients that go through our one-to-one evolution program, is that 60% turns into 70%. And then it turns into 75%, and then it turns into 80%. And then over the course of a few months, next thing you know, they're like, oh, I've got more energy. I'm getting more shit done. I'm just kind of getting things out there. But often people are looking for the fast hacks that are only going to add 1%, because you can't build a house on shit foundations. I guess it's, in a bodybuilding perspective, it would be like, yeah, sure, I'm going to take a load of gear, but I'm not really going to eat for it. And I'm probably not really going to train for it. And I'm going to sort of, I'm going to get this new productivity thing, or this new flow state optimize, or this visualization. Yeah, that's great. But if the foundations aren't there, if you're not sleeping well, eating well, training well, then you're never really going to build the foundations for that to really grow. It's kind of how I see the puzzle. Would you like to play around with some of this stuff? We don't have to go into the root cause stuff, but
go. I'm like an open book, man. If anything, I'm an oversharer. So be my guest. Like, if people want to hear it, then we'll go for it.
All right. So let's look at that energy that stuck in your own head, that whispering, can you really do this? That imposter syndrome and all of that emotion that comes up in the day-to-day that catches you off guard. If you were to cut that down by 50%, what would change?
I think I would just simply get a lot more done, like a lot quicker. You know, every now and again you have like a very good day where you're like, oh, I ended that day and I was like, oh, I got a lot done that day. I think it'd be a lot more days like that, which would be great, obviously, when you're trying to build, drive a business forward. And I've spoken about this a lot. Like, I think I had a team day at the start of the month, and one of my slides was on like how the coaching industry has changed over the last like 5 years. So when I first got a coach, I was given my plans on like a WhatsApp message and an email, and I was like, that it. And obviously coming from like a professional background, John Lewis, everything was like red tape, hoops, like, everything had to be perfect. If an email was going out, it's been read 3-4 times. You have to double check and triple check everything. So there was a high level of like quality and delivery and professionalism. And that was what I tried to bring to my coaching straight away. And I think that was why I did quite well to begin with, because people were like, oh, this is different. I just used to getting my stuff on a WhatsApp. And suddenly I'm bringing like presentation decks and branded like documents. And it was a good service, a really good service. But, that's leveled up now. Everyone's doing that. So that's not good enough anymore. And on top of that, people are doing team days. People are doing not only their coaching, but a challenge. And then people are doing the coaching and mentorship. And like the list goes on. And you finally like, you're going like, oh my God, just leaking everywhere. So I think you naturally have to be a higher performer, even just to keep up nowadays. Like, I think if I came into the industry today doing what I did back then, it'd be like, how's it? Well, not what he's doing, but like, yeah. also special. So yeah, I would be able to get more done, which, that's maybe more lead gen, maybe some outreach, maybe some free stuff that I'm giving away to drive more leads and things like that. So I think that's what would happen. I think at the moment what I do is, I wake up, have my check-ins to do. They're my priority. They're my current clients. They get the best Joe, at the start of the day, and then I go and train, and then I come back and I'm a bit goosed after training. But that really is when I need to do the other stuff that's maybe driving the business forwards rather than just keeping it in a good spot. So if I can have a bit more energy in the afternoon, or a bit more creativity still, a bit of battery left, then maybe I could crack on and get a bit more done there.
Yeah. That's the coffee cup. Whatever you're operating at now, it's just boosting that up. If you were to look at yourself in a real honest sense, when you look at that coffee cup, of your potential, how much of that do you feel like you're using at the minute? Is it 80%, 60%, 40%?
Somewhere between 40 and 60, I think. That's genuinely how I feel. Like, that's probably my biggest stressor is I always say my biggest fear has been like I get to retirement age and I'm like, you could have done so much more. Like, why didn't you do more? Why did you waste that time? Or why didn't you do more? Or could you have been better here? So my biggest fear now that I've gone, actually probably always in life, but has been more uncovered as a entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever, but bodybuilder, is like, don't get to the end and realize you could have done so much more. That's what bothers me, I think, the most. That's what probably drives me forwards, but also I think is what also makes me almost more often want to quit, because I'm quite, you're never going to get there. Like, that's probably where I find the push and pull.
And where are you putting your fulfillment? Are you putting it in the future and these perceived milestones? Do you get it in the day to day? Like, where are you seeing that at the moment?
My fulfillment, that's a good question. I think I'm getting better at this. I think I'm getting better at shifting it to where I'm at now. I get my fulfillment when I feel like I've had a positive influence on someone or something, or positively impacted an outcome. That doesn't matter whether that's someone stepping on stage. That doesn't matter whether someone messaged me and says something like, for example, I was going to take steroids and then I listened to this and you really made sense, and now I'm going to rethink that, and I'm like, good, great decision, well done. Like that sort of stuff gives me fulfillment. I definitely get fulfillment from my bodybuilding journey. 100% get fulfillment from that. Like, it was just this past week, like training with Josh again. When I see a picture of myself that is the person that I want to look like at the moment in my bodybuilding career, that gives me fulfillment. Like, I feel excited by that. So I think I do get fulfillment today, but for sure there's like, I guess I feel like there's a lot of it waiting for me, or I'm waiting for it, or I need to go and find it. I think that comes with the pressures of like what I'm doing, man. Like, I find it very difficult. Like, a week doesn't go by where I'm not stressed about like, I need more clients, or should be doing better. What more can I do to drive my business forward? So, yeah, I don't know if I lack fulfillment now. I'm not sure what it is, 'cause I don't yearn for the Lamborghini. I don't yearn to have a whole load of watches. I don't anymore yearn for a whole wardrobe of really expensive clothes. I'd like a nice place to live. I'd like I'd like to be really happy with where I'm living. And a massive motivation for me, especially as I've now reached my 30s, is like in the next year I'll have a wife. I currently have a fiance. We want kids. Like, I want them guys to be comfortable. I don't want to be worrying about anything. I think another big kind of shaping part of my life was that time when I was in London, and I remember like my paycheck would run out every month, and I have to last a few days without it, maybe a week. And there was one time where like my shoes, I had Clark's Wallabies and I wore them to the office, and they'd literally worn through. And I went home and my mum was like, Joe, let me get you some shoes, because I don't like to ask for handouts. Like last night, literally had a call with my stepdad. Me and my fiance were having a little registry fairly soon, so we can sort of get on with our lives. And he literally said to me, "Oh, we'd like to pay for the photographer or something. You're not very forthcoming." And I was like, "No, I'm not. Like, I'm not going to ask for help. Like, especially now, because I've done enough to stand on my own 2 feet. So I'm not going to ask for that help."
Is that just financial help, or is that help in general?
I will ask for help. I won't ask for financial help. Yeah,
gotcha.
I will ask for help. I'm pretty good at actually asking for help. Like, I think on the whole, if I need someone, if I need help, well, I'm very good at just being like, look, I'm struggling. Can you help me? I don't struggle to kind of outsource that. I'm not a one man band. I know I'm not going to do it myself. I actually prefer to work with people and get help from people. But yeah, financially, like, he was like, "You're not very forthcoming." I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be forthcoming. I'm not going to ask you for like this or that." Like, I know that everyone has their own, everyone's got their own stuff going on. That my mum and stepdad are trying to do stuff with their lives. Like, and I mean, I'm 20, I'm not 20, I'm 30. They didn't need me asking for money for this or that, for a decision that I decided to take. So yeah, I'm not even sure where that went, but yeah.
I was asking about fulfillment.
There we go.
Steve Jobs said to one of his longest running HR managers, who he built a personal relationship with at the end of his life when he had cancer, and she goes, "What was the best bit?" He's like, "What was it? Like the iPhone or like the Mac or the iPad? Like what was it?" And he kind of looks at her, and he's got a bit of a weird vibe. I don't know if you've read much into Steve Jobs and the way that he managed, but he was a bit mental in a good way. A lot of the greats are a bit mental.
Yeah.
And he looks at her and he says, "All of that was bullshit." I think her name was Diane. All of that was bullshit, Diane, just in case it's not. But he goes, "The journey is the reward."
Yeah.
And you hear all of these cliches, and I think cliches are actually the unwritten laws of life. And often we kind of just go, well, yeah, obviously. But there's one thing knowing it, there's another thing feeling it and truly knowing it, like really understanding what that is. And it was only when I started realizing, well, hang on, like this is always going to be, if you're going to do great things are always going to be hard. There's always going to be stressors. But what I found was when I focus on the journey, all right, what's the next bit of the puzzle that I'm trying to solve? Is it this way or is it this way? And I started playing with that part versus putting my happiness and my sense of worth in when I achieve this. I wanted to box the Olympics, and I mapped every single fight and tournament I had to win all the way back until that. And I just decided I wouldn't be happy until I went to the Olympics. So I spent years very unhappy. Then in software sales, it was like, okay, I'll be happy when I've got this amount of commission and this salary and this type of girlfriend and this apartment. And I did all of it. And I was like, I still don't feel enough, man. Like, what the fuck is going on? And I do think, particularly with ambitious minds, is we attach our self-worth to outcomes.
Oh yeah.
And as a result, we spend a lot of time unhappy. And it isn't to say that, we don't want to go after some great things. And there is nothing wrong with having good, lofty goals. But it's not becoming attached to the goal. It's understanding that it is just a milestone. And if you can find a process that you enjoy, so you love the bodybuilding process, right? The process of getting in shape, getting into a show, doing that, and even the pain and the suffering that goes in that, you enjoy it. You get something out of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. I think too many people are suffering in pursuits that they don't care enough about, and thus they're just trapped in this sort of bland pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Understanding, actually, if you can find a process that you love, oh shit, the game can change.
Yeah. I've definitely become more aware of that in my bodybuilding journey. So I've said quite openly, like this year competing may well be my last year. I don't really know. Like how I feel after time away is like I feel like I could go on for a few more years. But we'll see how life pans out. But for me, the absolute overarching goal, and actually I wrote this on my 2024 goals on the 2nd of January, or 1st of January, whenever I wrote it, was to have fun with it. I've stopped having fun with a lot of stuff, work, business, work, not training. I still have fun with training, but bodybuilding as a whole process. Like, you can't have the off season without the prep, and bits of it is gonna suck, and like that's cool. So for me, like my mantra this year is just have fun with it. Like, you lost that in 2023, because I did lose a lot of fun, and then I've reflected a lot on my last few competitive seasons, and some of the most profound lessons I've had is like, you will lose to someone who's having fun. You will lose to someone who is enjoying the suffering more than you. And you will also lose to people who are like willing to give absolutely everything for it. So if you're going to leave yards, or leave a bit of something on the table because your passion is not there, it's all interlinked. And you are not going to give as much of it because you're not enjoying yourself or loving it, there's going to be someone else who's loving it, man. So like, for me, the outcome, I have now put that outcome, I've obviously got an outcome in my head that I would like, that I think I'd be happy with or satisfied with or proud of, should I say. But for me, the majority of the journey this year is to have fun with it, to enjoy that whole process, and to not, I said this to Josh yesterday on the podcast, like, not shy away from the hard work or cut corners or try and get there, because I think, again, it's all linked. So I'm good at that. I think I'm getting better at that with bodybuilding. If I can just apply that to business a bit more, I think that could be a very positive change for me.
In boxing, there's a phrase: a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. I think the same with any athlete. It doesn't mean that the happy athlete or the happy entrepreneur isn't experiencing stress or chaos. People seem to think everything's black and white. It's like, oh, you're either happy or unhappy. You're either calm or you're anxious. or you're stressed, or you're overwhelmed, or you're good. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to move through these emotions in these states and be water versus rigid, being like really, really, really rigid and go, okay, all right, you know what? I'm anxious and excited at the same time, or I'm feeling quite low, but I'm still kind of a bit pissed off. So I'm going to use that to drive some outcomes and doing some work, which then might just pick that up. The ability to move through emotions and thoughts is really the thing. Our number one company value at Total Mental Performance is be water. Did you ever hear the Bruce Lee talk about being water?
Only through you. So I've read your post. I think it was actually about Dan. I think you were talking about Dan, and you said like he embodies this. So I've heard of it. But go on and explain it again so I understand it better.
He goes, Bruce Lee says, if you put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. If you put it into a teacup, it becomes the teacup. It can flow or it can crash, be water. And what he means by that is water can be absolutely devastating. Look at tsunamis and look at like waterfalls. You stand underneath a waterfall, it's going to crack your head open.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it harbors life, and it can be a really serene lake or a pond or whatever. And often we're really rigid. Athletes typically are quite rigid. This is my routine. This is my structure. Entrepreneurs can be quite rigid. Okay, well, this is the business model, so it's got to be like this. It's got to be like this. And it's only when you let go of that rigidness from an emotional standpoint, and we stop taking ourselves so seriously, and we start to really just go, you know what? Like, I'm a dude trying to do some cool shit, and I'm going to do it the best that I can with it. And it'll either work or it won't. But if it works or it doesn't necessarily validate whether I'm enough or not. I'm just running experiments, and I'm either going to prove my experiment, my hypothesis, I'm going to disprove it. And that's really what I see the world as, is how can I be more like water? How can I be more fluid? How can I flow and adapt? Have you ever heard about Japanese skyscrapers and why they're so special?
Is it going to be to do with earthquakes?
Yeah.
Because they wobble?
Yeah.
Because they're allowed to because of the earthquakes? Yeah.
Exactly that. They've got weights at the top and the bottom. So if there's an earthquake, if you look at a Japanese skyscraper, they move. They're so much more flexible. Whereas the original American, that's where the skyscraper comes from, is America. They're so rigid because they don't have that. So it's how can you learn to be like a Japanese skyscraper or like water and adapt and adjust? And that for me is a real agile mind. If I was going to look at, say, a Mr. Olympia mind, I've never made this metaphor, but it's quite cool. My version of a Mr. Olympia mind is the ability to be water. So something happens, you have your innate animalistic response, anger, anxiousness, overwhelmed, pissed off, stressed, and then you get back in control. And you go, right, I'm going to respond. I'm not going to react, I'm going to respond. The ability to control reactions, the ability to stop the thought and the mind from spiraling and spiraling and spiraling into, I can't even fucking pick up my laptop anymore. And getting back to that fluidity. That to me is like a Mr. Olympia or a black belt in jiu-jitsu, where they can just move and navigate around that. But that's not an easy thing to do. And we're not taught to think. Like when you was at school, who taught you to think? No one sits you down and goes, here's the most powerful supercomputer on the planet. It's the human mind. Here's how you drive this thing. Like, you're just not. And our whole reality is created through the mind, the whole thing. So it's just mental that we don't train it or work with it or invest in it. We just kind of just have this supercomputer and it's just running the show. Yeah. And it's crazy, absolutely crazy. So that's my view on the mind. And that's where I think, that's a well-trained mind, so to speak.
Yeah, makes sense. I like it.
So, what's next for you? You're having fun this year.
Yeah. What's next for me is, so moving to this country has been like a huge goal of, not actually Dubai specifically, but again, I feel like I've said this a lot recently, and I feel like this is also something that I struggle with, is that kind of online media presence, and what are people going to think of me when I move to Dubai? They're going to think, oh, look at this prick, off he goes, tax free and so on all the time. So I feel like I've had to justify this, and I shouldn't have to justify it to anyone. But my motivation for moving here, I think, is quite deep and quite long running. So when I was at John Lewis, obviously primarily a UK company that don't have many opportunities abroad, I was like, I don't want to live in the UK the whole time, man. Like, I want to experience some other places, some other cultures, some other just places in the world, and live there and see what it's like. So I was like, next job I get, it's going to be an international company, so I can travel or work abroad. Or so, that never happened. I didn't go from that company. So when I went from it to my own, and I've been fortunate enough, and I've built a life for myself where I can travel. That's not enough because I always have to go back to the UK and I don't really like it there, if I'm completely honest. So, you know, moving to Dubai probably isn't my number one on the top like list, but it's a really good alternative. I believe I will be in a much better environment here for success and for happiness and for enjoying the journey. So that's the biggest thing that's happening. That's happening like as we speak. As I say, coming back here with what will be my wife when we come, which is crazy. And then this year for me, it was about once we kind of get settled here, I've got about 2-3 months left of off season, and then I'll go into my prep. So that'll be 4 or 5 months long. And as I say, my last season, my last 2 seasons that I competed, just didn't have fun, man. And like I actually cut the last one short because I wasn't having fun. And I distinctly remember driving the year before. I was in America on my own. I was in Miami, incredible place, another place that I would definitely live in the world. And I was driving to the show and I was speaking to my stepdad on the phone, and I was like, Dad, I don't even want to go and compete. Can you believe, I spent 10 years getting to this pro status and I didn't want to go and step on a pro stage. Like no part of me wanted to do it. And he was like, come on, Joe, like pull yourself together. If you go on stage, like you want to be there, they'll know that. And they did, like that's how I felt. But I just wanted it to be over as quickly as possible. And then last year I did 2 shows and then I didn't do the third one because I just wasn't in the headspace anymore. I was tripping myself up. I was in my own way. So for me this year, that's it. That prep, I want to enjoy the prep because I think that will be an absolute key driver of success in the prep. I don't want to be regretting I didn't regret what I did, but I don't want to be regretting what I'm doing or just not having fun with what I'm doing, and therefore leading to poorer outcomes. And then I want to go through and do 4, 5, 6 shows. I want to compete back in the UK for the first time since like 2019. That'll be really special for me, I think. I just want to be proud of myself, man. I want to be proud of myself. I want people around me to be proud of me. My partner now, she's not seen me go through this process before, so that'll be interesting. We've got to navigate that together, but I'd like to make her proud and show her why I do all this shit that I do, because she's not a bodybuilder. So that's what's next for me over the next 12 months, I guess. From a business perspective, I am very passionate about a few things. I've been trying to sort of work out my ikigai, if you will. And this is not a secret to anyone, but I'm really, really passionate about clothing. It really inspires me. It's where I often feel like in my flow state when I'm in an environment where we're marketing clothes, which is really ironic, going back to what we said, because I've stopped caring about selling jumpers. But I think it's the creation process. Like, I think that'll be really cool. So I'm really inspired by the likes of Colbucks and Represent, a lot of these big brands that are doing stuff. So that's something that I'd like to do. I think there's a market there for me. It's something that I feel like quite uniquely good at, I guess, from the standpoint that I come from. So clothing, a big goal of mine is to launch that this year. If it's just t-shirts initially, that'd be wicked. But I've got a whole pack of designs that I want to drop. And then I guess I had a conversation about this morning. It's about kind of where's the coaching industry really going in the UK particularly, because I think I've spent this month a lot of time with international coaches or influencers or bodybuilders. Man, I gotta say, the UK must be the best place in the world for clients, because there is a pool of incredible coaches out there. There's, you've got the top guys, the ones that are really running the game at the moment, and they're sort of getting a bit of a monopoly. This is not stuff we've seen before. These huge coaching teams that have 7, 8 coaches on, and then you have this I guess let's talk about the Premier League. You've got Man City. That's going to be Pro Coach. I'm going to give Pro Coach Man City, and then you've got Liverpool, Arsenal. All kind of fighting up there. And then there's this pool of people that are trying to get in the Champions League or in the top 4 or even in the Euros. That pool is just incredible. They're all. That's why I'd have myself in that group of upper. In the top half of the mid table, top half of the top half. So in the top quarter. So let's say top 7, if you like, in that area. Not as in top 7 coaches, but in that area. And that pool, we're just fighting like dogs to get into that Champions League. And I think that's not going to get any easier. So from a coaching perspective, or from an education perspective, or from an influence perspective, when it comes to physique development, I'm just trying to think about how I can kind of pander to that. How can I answer the questions that people have got by maybe educating them or maybe sharing my journey more, or whatever that is. That's what I'm trying to work out right now. So I'm quite excited to work on that as well, because I think I might have worked something out. But again, a lot of this stuff, man, it comes down to what's going on here. Why would I do that? Why would they listen to me? Why would they buy my clothes? All that stuff. So I'm desperately trying to bat that down as I work through it. And maybe you will tell me batting it down's the wrong thing to do. You need to work through it. But yeah, that's what's next.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
No worries.
I say this with love, that thing that I have to, that asking, it's almost like asking for permission, or like, well, who am I to do this, or whatever. And I can say this, I've experienced this myself and the hundreds of clients that have been through TMP. That is the 20 to 30 kilo backpack that you're walking around with. That if you let that go, I'll use a boxing metaphor. In boxing, we get really talented boxers where they just pour with their jab. So I'm doing this as you're listening. I'm sort of throwing out my lead hand. And they kind of like do this, and they do this, and they do this, and they're kind of just there, and they just need to let the right hand go. I guess another one would be just drop the fucking hammer. And whatever this questioning, like, oh, who wants to really listen to me, or why do I get invited to these things, or is anyone going to buy my shit, or what about like with the clothes and whatever, what about this or this or this or this. That is like I can see it and I can feel it, because when you talk like that, your shoulders hunch in. Watch this episode back, and you'll see like that is the weight. And I know if you shift that, man, fucking hell, you'll be a completely. There's two parts. You'll be a completely different animal in the way in which you can show up and you can compete and go and win and go and get the things that you want. But then the other half is bigger than competition, which is just peace. Inner peace of, yeah, I love this. And I was born to do this, and I'm going to go and make that happen. So however you go and solve that, if you go and solve that, mate, honestly, I just think those two things, your ability to compete and go and win, but then also that inner peace and that freedom that you'll have. It doesn't mean you won't experience stress, but it's a different feeling. I really think your whole reality will change. I think that's the thing upstream that's holding off everything else.
Yeah, I'd like to. I say, man, when we did have that, I thought a lot about our conversation that we had before, and I'm like, oh, that's what I need, like some help unpacking that and unraveling it, I guess, and removing that bottleneck. Because I, like you say, I have this. Oh man, his name escapes me, and that's a really shame because I absolutely love what he said. But you might have heard of it. His first name's James, and I can't remember his second name. I want to say like Stan something. I'll find it for you after this. He has he was I think he was like a war general, really really inspiring one. And his whole stance was like, we have an unwavering faith that we're going to get the job done despite the absolute colossal size of the task. And I think that's how I feel a lot of the time. And I often, like, you know, look back to my younger self, and I'm way ahead of where I ever thought I was going to get to for a really really long time, which is amazing. But also I always had this faith, man. There's always just something in me. It's like, you're going to do something, like you're going to do something well, you'll find it, just keep looking for it. And I think it's that balance. I actually wrote this out yesterday, and it's given me a lot of ideas, like where being a dreamer meets being a realist, or like idealism meets realism. I think that's kind of what I run on, and I could just do with being a bit more of a dreamer, I think, or at least allowing my actions to be the actions a bit more of a dreamer rather than of a realist, because, you know, I've got all these great things that I want to do and I want to spend my time on, but ultimately I've got bills to pay. You know, I've got there's responsibilities that I've got, particularly I'm dragging my fiance out here. I'm not dragging her, but it's been my idea. It's something that I want to do. It's kind of on me. I've got, you know, I'm going to have to make sure that we're all good, and I will make sure that happens. But it also just like, there's all that, and then like the space for the other stuff that at least initially is not going to help us with the practical stuff, you know, the realistic stuff. That's like my dreamer out the back. So we have to get the realistic stuff done first, and then the dreaming comes after. But that's where I think that's the battle.
Jim Collins he wrote a book called Good to Great. It talks about level 5 leadership. Actually, probably a lot of the board at John Lewis have probably read it. Incredible book. And he talks about he literally says unwavering faith and brutal facts. And level 5 leaders know to have unwavering faith. Yeah, like, I know we can do this, we can pull this off. But the brutal facts are, I don't know, like, let's say UK retail's down, we're making losses, and we're going to have to make some cuts. So I still believe that we'll come through this, but the reality is we're just not there at the minute. And it's always doing that dance of the two. So it's not about going reckless, all in, fucking, I'm a dreamer, like, let's go. But when that holds you back from doing the actions or having the conversations or making the connections that deep down you know you can make, but there's a fear of judgment, or there's a fear of, well, I don't get it right, or yeah, but who am I to ask that? Who am I to ask to go here or be on this stage or speak to this person? That's That's the bit, and that's what I see with you. Like, you've got. I actually think you've got the brutal facts down. Like, it seems like you've figured that bit out. But that there's a part where you just let that right hand go. Fucking hell, man. Reality will be so different for you.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I say, there's a lot that's kind of flowing through me this year that is just like, kind of, I guess, like say yes, do a bit more, do what you actually want to do and what makes you happy. I've been reflecting a lot on like what's actually making you happy at the moment. Who is it you enjoy working with? What are the conversations you like having? And I can tell you the ones that like set me alight at the moment. They're different to what is the most of my day. And I find them quite frustrating, and I feel they drain my energy. And so, yeah, there's a lot of me this year that is about removing that unnecessary like energy leaking out or being dragged out of me that is pulling me back. And secondly, doing more of what I actually want to do. What is it I really truly feel excited about driving forwards? Let's do that, because in the same way that it comes down to bodybuilding, you can bet in business if you're trying to fight a fight with someone who just fucking loves it or wants to die for it, they're going to beat you. So there's bodybuilding. You asked me to start what was bodybuilding give me, and some fucking great lessons as well, man, because I think so much of it is applicable to the rest of life, and I'm sure that's the same for most sports, but bodybuilding is just my one.
Love that one, man. Final question. Forget us as a company, as a team, but what does the phrase total mental performance mean to you? If you had total mental performance, how would you know?
Total mental performance for me would be exactly what your team would do for me. I think what your company would do for me, it would be removing the shackles. Total mental performance to me would be removing the shackles, removing the limiting beliefs, taking off that extra weight where you said that backpack, and allowing me to actually be my best, act like the person that I want to act like, and achieve the things that I want to and believe I can achieve.
Yeah. Amazing, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. I've deeply enjoyed this conversation. We've got a really beautiful level of depth there. Where can everyone find you? What's the best channel to get in touch with you?
So the most common one that will be updated is obviously Instagram. So that's just Brightman _. And then YouTube will be coming through thick and fast this year. So we're already sort of I've done 5 videos in 4 weeks, which is great. We'll keep that running. I'd like to do two a week for the rest of the year. So take you through my prep and all the other experiences I'm going through. And I think that's just Brightman Fitness on YouTube. That probably needs a little change up, but yeah, Instagram Brightman, YouTube Brightman Fitness.
Amazing, mate. Thanks so much for coming on the pod, mate. We appreciate it.
Man. Thanks for having me.